Welcome to Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Fage, and pleased to introduce today's guest, Akash Sinha, president of Dharma Developments. And you're probably thinking to yourself, we're going to talk about the construction industry and the markets and how it's impacted. No, we're going to pivot and talk about that, but many, many other things. And I think things that a lot of us have been thinking about since this pandemic began. Our minds are starting to expand a little bit. Akash, how are you?
Thanks for having me. Hi, Derick. Very nice to connect with people, however it may be. Nice to
I
see you.
agree. We were just talking off camera, the fact that, I'm back in Ottawa and, you and I hadn't seen each other until we ran into each other at Susan Blaine's launch party of her fantastic series, by the way, which I was so proud to be a part of. And I know you were too. And then we thought, we'll probably see each other quite often, right? At different events. And this is fantastic to sort of reconnect. And then a pandemic hit. And here we are doing it virtually instead.
Virtually instead. I'll tell you though, I've had the opportunity to connect through through these times with a lot of people I wouldn't have otherwise, and so there's been some silver linings that way. So the connection, the desire to connect, and the need to connect isn't lost. We just have to be a little bit more creative about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Just starting this show, a lot of people reached out to me that I hadn't spoken to in quite some time. So yeah, I've been able to reconnect and, share some old stories together and how we met. And so it's been a really fun experience.
Yeah.
Akash,
So yeah, sorry, touching on your
ahead.
introduction, I am interested in this conversation. You're right. We are called Dharma Developments is our company, but we're going to talk less about development and more about the Dharma side of things, I hope.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to talk about. But yeah, before we get to that, just quickly, how has it affected your business?
Great question. I was thinking about that a lot. So you mentioned the Susan Blaine series that we were a part of. That series really talked about people overcoming a lot of different adversity, right? So we've all been through lots of adversity, and I think as we get to our age where we've had to take our knocks down and get back up, we face a lot of those different kinds of challenges where as a business I felt, oh my God, my world is ending. How am I going to get through this? So that feeling in itself is not new.
Right.
And through a lot of the things that we can touch upon, we actually restructured our business very differently than what we had before. So that being able to work from home was not upsetting for us in any way. We were able to carry on business in that regard the same. It did change our clients, our custom home clients, and clients who need project management for the construction projects. So that uncertainty has caused a lot of construction projects to be delayed to some degree. We actually do have a client who actually signed on during the pandemic, believe it or not, with the hopes that at some point this will transform. So we just try and stay involved and work with the trades, trying to stay abreast of what the rules and regulations will be for construction sites. And so it's been a good learning curve. We're still involved. We're still working, just not as fast as before. That's all.
You mentioned Dharma. I want to talk about that and what the meaning of that word is, because that'll lead us into our next conversation. So what does Dharma mean exactly?
So Dharma is a Buddhist and Hindu term. If you want a direct translation, people use the word religion. But on a broader scale, it's a code of conduct. It's a way of life. It's having a belief system and respecting and adhering to that belief system.
Yeah, and you sent me some really interesting talking points. So I want to just, jump in and share those talking points with viewers, and then you can expand upon each one. The first one you said is adaptability and accepting chaos. And I think many of us are feeling a lot of chaos, especially with that inner voice, that we have on a constant basis. And maybe that inner voice has changed quite dramatically for us during the pandemic. So adaptability, accepting chaos. What do you mean by that?
Well, we are so used to thinking that we need to control what happens in our lives, right? And if you look in a business, it's based on the notion of having some level of predictability, right? We want to have our sales goals in mind. We have timelines and, create all these Gantt charts and spreadsheets that are really supposed to like focus on how things are supposed to go, and we're controlling all of that kind of stuff. But all of these are very two-dimensional, if you will, because there's so many parameters that affect life. Anyone who's been to a construction site can see that if you don't have some sense of control on it, it's quite chaotic.
Yeah.
So now you extrapolate that into the world we're in right now. All of the notions of how we can control things are up in the air. And there's been a desperate reach to try and do that and gain control again. But we're really faced with the fact that there's a lot of things that we thought we had control over that we don't. And this is not a new concept. This goes back to very old Zen teachings of like, you have to understand your role within the chaos and do what you can to move forward. You can't control the chaos around you. And so as these influences come upon us, we have to do our best to work with what's available to us. And those are going to change.
Yeah, and that I think leads to sort of this forward thinking that you want to talk about, this, non-attachment. I'm fascinated by that. What do you mean by non-attachment? Because we are attached to so many things in life.
We are. I'll tell you a little bit of a story about our business and transition. This is kind of going back to Susan Blaine's notion of being vulnerable about it. So I'll reveal this. So about 10, 12 years ago, we had all sorts of projects on the go. We had a lot of chaos that we were trying to organize and make things happen. And I had this vision of what was going to happen with our business, and it was just going to be the best damn development company the world had ever seen. And then that didn't transpire the way I thought it was. And one of the scary things that happened to me was in the middle of a business meeting with a partner at the time, I was physically assaulted. Like,
what?
Actually, yeah.
By your partner?
Yeah.
So did you get you got in an argument of some kind?
It started off as a heated exchange of words that ended in a physical altercation. That required me getting stitches, that required having to call the police, that had to do all those kinds of unpleasant things. So right away, any notion of what I thought our business is going to be, I had to slowly, it didn't happen easily, and it happened with a lot of tears and with a lot of pain, had to really let go of the vision that I was attached to of what it would be like to be the best damn developer in the world.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's an example of non-attachment that we have to happen, right? And I think luckily it's in our world, certainly in Ottawa, I think people are dealing with things a lot more peacefully. But they're still feeling that notion of what they thought the outcome was going to be at the end of 2020. This is our year. They have to let go of the attachment of those visions.
Yeah, and there's obviously frustration, and it's okay to feel that way. I think there's people, we're all feeling frustrated. There's these lack of freedom, and I think it's a constant conversation around people's dinner table is, when are the parks going to open up? That's just been recently announced, and why can't we go and play soccer? And it's so frustrating, right? Because you do think of it as hold on a second, this is my freedom that they're talking about. You see protests, huge protests in the United States of ending the lockdown and so forth. So people are frustrated, but I think they have to find the right tools to deal with that frustration without putting people in danger, because that's what we're talking about, right?
It is, and it touches upon another point that I think is really important through all of this, that thanks to the connectivity of the internet and being able to be a part of those dialogues, is I've learned to be a lot more empathetic about opposing views. So you're right. On one hand, we're feeling like, okay, man, I don't want anyone infringing on my rights to be able to do what I need to do. I'm healthy. I should be able to take care of myself. But there are a lot of people that aren't. There are a lot of people that have very legitimate fears about their health and what their well-being is going to be. And as much as I do believe in personal freedoms, and we can talk about the overarching rules that the government may bring upon us and all those kind of fears. Um, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that some people are very genuinely afraid of what the future will bring, and to try and hammer a point on them is not going to help anyone. We really need to like understand, be empathetic to those fears, and kind of nurture them along to where we could find a more calm and healthy outcome from all of this.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for those of us that, perhaps haven't dived into, our creativity. And I know there's probably people watching to say, well, I'm not creative. I don't have that in me. I would disagree. I think everybody has creativity within themselves. And I think a lot of people are
Yeah.
taking it as an opportunity to try to find out, something that they may be passionate about, or, maybe find a hobby. And I know that's important to you, is creativity, but that manifests itself in so many different ways. How does it manifest itself in you?
So when the altercation happened way back when, I realized in hindsight, and this is where we're going to get really dharmic about this. This may not make a lot of rational sense, but I believe in a way, and I have a lot of respect and gratitude for the person that did that, because in a way they knocked a lot of sense into
Really?
me.
Okay.
It knocked a lot of sense into me because it made me at that time realize that I was chasing after something that wasn't genuine to my core.
Okay.
I do have a passion for development. I do have a passion for construction. I am an engineer by training, so I do love that aspect of it. But I realized that there were so many aspects of the business that I was focusing on that wasn't addressing that stuff. And in my energy spent on addressing the things that I didn't like, I was denying other aspects of my life. And so the sense that it knocked into me is that, wait, I don't need to spend the time creating something that doesn't mean anything to me. What are the things that do matter to me? And on a personal development side, certainly music has been a massive influence in my life, and I've always enjoyed it. I used to DJ for a long time, even before starting the business. Um, so that actually instigated my creative journey towards getting back into writing music and writing songs and recording, practicing and playing guitar, taking on the most challenging thing I've ever done is trying to learn how to sing.
Did
Let me
you
tell you, if
get
you want
did you get a coach of some sort, or you just did it on your own?
many coaches. I'm much more of a self-directed kind of person, but I do actively seek teachers of various kinds, and so I've been lucky enough to have friends and paid for coaches to guide me along. But through all of that, like you can have all the teachers in the world. At the end of the day, it's the diligent practice on the craft,
Right.
whether that's in your business or whether it's in your hobby. That there's a lot of beauty that comes out of that practice, and so creativity was very important for me to adopt then. And so like for the last 7-8 years, like I play music every day. It is as important to me as it is to exercising, as it is to spending time with my family. It feeds my soul, right? So we have the mind, body, spirit connection. So I believe taking care of our health, exercising, that's taking care of our body. Our mind is what gives us the business, right? Like we create ideas, we interact. So then the spirit, you can various ways to find spirit, but for me, creativity, because if you want to be close to the creator, create. And
Right.
and I say this, yeah, in my dharmic sense, it is our God-given right to create whatever it is we choose to create.
Well, and it can nurture
And
you spiritually, right? And as you mentioned before, it doesn't matter what you practice. Some people practice a religion, and some people, don't. But spirituality isn't just religion, right?
no,
Spirituality is just, just being human. And
absolutely.
we need to nurture that spirituality and find a way to do it, because you're not doing it to make a living out of music, right? Maybe that'll come, and that happens for a lot of people, right? No matter what type of artistic endeavor that they decide, what journey or path they decide to go on artistically,
Mm.
the benefit maybe down the road you can turn it into a career, but for most people it doesn't start that way.
Well, the important thing I think is to find an activity that is about nurturing yourself.
Yeah.
So even with business, we're accountable. We're accountable to our customers. We're accountable to our suppliers. We're accountable to rules and regulations. But when you actually have a creative activity that you're learning. So chances are, even if you've never drawn before and you decide, I've been wanting to draw for a long time, picking up a piece of paper and a pencil is the easiest thing to do. To do that for the sake of your own growth, where you don't care if someone else judges if your drawing is good or bad.
Right.
That's where I believe the personal growth comes from. That's where we're like letting humility enter, because this might suck. Like my singing is very humbling for so, so I saw your guest Tammy. Like I was like, I can't sing like that. I'll never sing like that.
No, but it's true. I mean, we're very self-conscious with things like that. And it's funny you bring that up, because my wife has recently, I mean, she's always loved drawing and painting and sketching and that kind of thing.
Beautiful.
But she's gotten more into it in recent weeks because of the pandemic. And she's actually taking, lessons online. And I turned to her at one point and I said, "Oh, Monica, I wish I could draw. I wish I could paint." And she's like, "Well, why don't you try to draw or paint?"
Sure.
And I said, "Well, because I'm terrible." And she's like, "Well, have you taken a lesson? Like, not everything is about you just trying it on your own. If you follow along and you take a lesson and you take the time, you may surprise yourself." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, maybe."
Yeah. And in the terrible is a judgment that you're placing on yourself compared to someone else, right? What's terrible is not taking that step. So I think everyone has the ability to draw. You pick up a piece of paper and you pick up a pencil, you can draw. Everyone has the ability to sing. Blah, just open your mouth and let words come out and sing. It's in relation to others that we start to think, "Oh, am I good enough?" Well,
right.
That's where the dialogue in your head needs to stop.
Well, you're doing it for the wrong reason then, right?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, maybe can a career come out of this? The future is unwritten. I quote one of my favorite singers, Joe Strummer. I said, like, the future is unwritten. There's no way to predict what will happen. All you can do is take the next right step. And now I'm quoting Frozen 2. So there you go.
I love it. Last thing I want to talk to you about is manifesting abundance. And this is something I have discussed with some other guests, but everybody has a different opinion on what that means. What do you mean by that?
Abundance is a good question. I think a lot of people, let's put it, I used to think abundance meant lots of money, right? The abundance meant the freedom to be able to do anything I want, whenever I want, and that can come with money. And I think I'm going to be a little off topic here, and I feel like we are often looked towards people who have a lot of money as the heroes. They will save us, or that's the model to aspire to. But when we really think about what matters to us, and we're finding ourselves in our homes right now, what are we actually satisfied with? We're actually satisfied with the abundance of love. We are lucky enough that we're not starving, so we have enough of food. We're abundantly plentiful in that way. We have the energy we need to warm our homes. So abundance, I think, is really about understanding what's really truly important to our core and making sure that we have the energy to feed that, and not chasing after bigger things that may not even matter to us.
No, you're right, because I think a lot of people, look at, as you said, very successful, rich people, and they go, "Oh, they have everything because they can do whatever they want, whenever they want." But that doesn't necessarily feed your spirit. Being able to fly to Paris and, have lunch at a cafe at the drop of a hat, right? That doesn't necessarily feed your spirit. That just feeds the fact that you can do that because you have the means to do it, but you have the means to do so many things without being rich, right?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I didn't have the means to do before this pandemic was actually be able to run 5 kilometers. And now I can run 5 kilometers. So that's a level of abundance for me that is new, that I've been able to harness. And when I'm 90 years old, I want to still be able to do that. So that would be like an abundant ability to have. So our notion of abundance really needs to change, and we look at really the power of the universe is infinite. There's no denying that. So which portions of those do we really want to bring into our lives to fulfill our true core? that abundance is available to us.
You know, that makes me think of my father, Akash, because you know, my dad in incredible shape. I mean, he played, you know, in the over 30 hockey league until he was like 68 years old. He was the oldest guy for probably 10 years on that team, and
Right
just, you
on.
know, worked out 7 days a week. And then unfortunately, due to, you know, genetics and family history, had a heart attack, and then after that, he's had 3 strokes. And you know,
Mm.
my dad had, you know, this abundance of, he could run 10 kilometers, and you know, he could, you know, work out, do a kettlebell workout, you know, with Tony Greco. And now his abundance is, I walked 45 minutes today without my walker. And he takes great
Beautiful.
pride in that, right? Because
Beautiful.
there
Of
was
course.
obviously a moment of frustration, you know, after the strokes, that, you know, I can't do what I
Sure.
used to do, and I can't bike, and I don't have the balance to play golf anymore. And he set that aside, and he
Mm.
rethought, you know, what the goals are, and what are the new goals. Okay, my whole left side was compromised, my, you know, I was paralyzed. Well, guess what, now I can move my left leg, now I have more movement in my arm, now I don't need a
Mm.
walker for my 45-minute walk. So I think you always have to think about, you know, the situation that you're in, the tools that you have available to yourself at that time. And instead of having the regret that it happened, it's, as you
Mm.
said, it's moving forward and thinking about, okay, how do I find that new, how do I manifest the new abundance in my life, right?
Mm-hmm. 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 Thanks for sharing that. What an inspiring person.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
he's
really
amazing. I
beautiful.
mean, he's the most motivated human being I've ever met in my life. He's an incredible person.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, and that obviously has guided you a lot. So, can I ask you? I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, but what's been the one takeaway from this that you'd like to share? That
Oh, that's interesting. I think for me, it's really recognizing, you know, how grateful I am to be home with family,
mm,
because, you know, you know, for 4 years, I commuted back and forth between Montreal and Ottawa every
right,
weekend, right? Doing breakfast
right.
television, Montreal. And that was, you know, obviously a difficult decision for my wife and I, because we knew that I was going to have to go to Montreal, and my wife would stay here, and my stepson and my daughter would be here in Ottawa, and I'd be missing out on a lot of things. So, you know, a
Mm,
lot of people, you know, immediately after they canceled the show, you know, of course, reached out to me, and, you know, they were, you know, very sympathetic and sorry that this happened. And I said, you know what, I'm happy. You know,
mm,
this was the right thing at the right time, especially, you know, when this once this pandemic began, I thought, my goodness, imagine the situation I would have found myself in if I was still working
sure,
in Montreal, right? Like,
right.
Montreal's, you know, I know Quebec is thinking about reopening sooner than most provinces, but
Mm,
Montreal itself is pretty much under a complete lockdown, because of
yeah,
so many cases being there. I probably wouldn't have been able to commute back and forth between Ottawa and Montreal. I would have been in Montreal, you know, by myself. And I
right.
think that would have been really hard on me, because I've already had a difficult time. I had a couple of weeks
Mm,
where I just was having a really hard time, which I mentioned on social media. Just, you know, waves of sadness. And there wasn't
of
any
course.
particular reason that I could point to specifically, but I, you know, and I
Yeah,
just wanted to feel it. Sometimes you just need to feel it. You know, I didn't want to tell anyone right away, because I didn't want
sure.
advice. You know what I mean? I didn't want
Yeah,
a
yeah,
response to it. I just
of
needed
course.
to just go through the waves, feel it,
Yeah,
because every emotion is important to feel,
it
right?
is.
If I
Yeah,
don't feel
yeah,
sadness, then I don't exactly know what joy is going to be, right?
yeah.
I've always had that philosophy. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is, you know, just grateful. That was a wonderful opportunity, but I'm
Mm,
grateful that it ended, and I'm certainly grateful that it ended, you know, when it did, because here I
sure.
am at home with family, and being able to spend, you know, a lot of time that I have missed with them over a 4-year period.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, these waves of emotion cannot be denied, and I see it. Certainly, you can feel with people trying to grapple with the situation, right? And a lot of discussion about the narratives and are we being duped? And there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of sadness, and there's a lot of great jokes out of it
Yeah.
too. I mean, there's a lot of humor to be had out of speaking moistly and stuff like that.
No, you're right. Humor is very important in times like this. You know, I know some people, some people find it offensive. I find it
Yeah,
fantastic. If there's one great thing
yeah.
about social media, is just seeing some of the great memes and some of the amazing comments that people have
Oh,
made.
if one thing is spread faster than the virus, it's the memes.
Yeah.
It's been really remarkable. Um, I think in closing, out of all of that, one of the things that you were speaking about your father there. I'm doing this 21-day meditation exercise. So using this opportunity to actually focus myself and be part of a group that's doing this, and it's been absolutely rewarding. Because again, one of those things, I don't have time for that. And wait a second, now I do have time for that.
Yeah.
We're finding the time to do the things that really matter to us, and it would be irresponsible for everyone to deny that opportunity right now. If Mother Nature has provided us the opportunity, find that thing that matters to you. And while all of this thing is happening, so the meditation exercise today was about remembering your mother. So I'm grateful that I have a chance, and as soon as this call is done, I'm going to go call my mom and tell her I love her.
I'm going to do the same.
Right.
I saw my mom
But
this morning, actually. She
beautiful.
did a social distancing, just pulled up. They were out and about just to take a
Yeah.
drive. So that was nice to see, because my mom doesn't have the internet or a cell phone. So, you know,
Right.
we're not able to do FaceTime. So for her and my stepfather to come by, that was pretty special.
Yeah. One of the things my mom tried to help me when chaos is happening and immersed in not trying to, and in all the information that's coming at you, and you're trying to sift through it and trying to know what's real and what's not real. One of the things she really instilled upon me is believe that the truth will always come out, and just always have faith in that truth. It's not the truth is irrefutable, and we may see it through our own filtered eyes, but the truth will always come out. So just keep having faith in that, and keep looking out for your fellow human being, and we'll be on the right side of this.
That's a smart mom. Great piece of advice. Well, you
Yeah,
enjoy
better go
that
call her
phone
now.
call. Enjoy that phone call with your mom, and enjoy this special time with your family. And I can't thank you enough. You've really lifted my spirits. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for reaching out, and thanks for chatting, Derick. It's been great, and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.